Welcome to Tell the Damn Story, the show that explores the many ways to navigate the successes and failures that aspiring and struggling writers face to make your journey that much easier.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Tell the Damn Story. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is bi-coastal. That's right. Alex Simmons right over there, Chris Ryan right over here, Nova on the East Coast, and we have our new hero, Victoria Mal, over on the West Coast in the Hollywood area, Orange County.
Yeah.
And she's going to talk to us about being a writer and producer in the land of the stars, ladies and gents.
And something
we're
else.
Talk about the glory and the grit.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that
else.
phrase. The
Yeah.
glory and the grit.
Yeah.
And
Victoria,
something
welcome.
else.
And something else. What's your something else?
So stick around for the something else, because that's
Yeah,
really
very,
super
very
important.
special something else that
Okay.
Alex is, as you can see, extremely excited about.
Okay.
All right, Victoria, you are a writer-producer
I am.
out there in Hollywood. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, about what you do now, and then we'll work a little backwards and talk about your secret origin, and then about the big project. How's that sound?
That sounds fabulous. First things first, gentlemen, thank you so much for having me on. I feel like I'm back in the tri-state area talking to you too as a native Jersey girl. So thank you so much.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I'm a writer producer out here in LA. I've had some scripts get a little bit of heat behind them. I'm working on a couple indie projects now. I consult for a couple apps. And yeah, and then I'm putting on a stage reading fundraiser of an original script I wrote called Whatever Happened to Baby J. It is a wild, wacky, delightful comedy set in the world of boy bands and Y2K nostalgia for all my fellow millennials, with an amazing, frankly, I so bat out of my league with the cast we got.
Oh yeah,
There's
we got to
something
talk about
for
that.
everybody in that
Let's
cast.
savor that one. Let's draw that one out just a little
Yes,
bit more.
I'm a writer producer and yeah, and native Jersey girl working out here in LA, just trying to stay afloat as our industry goes through, I guess, I feel like the rockiest times in the last 50 years.
Yeah, without getting too political, it's weird here in America and
Just a
getting
little.
weirder by the day. And yeah, we got to try and support each other as we go through. And I'm not really
tell
sure
the
what it's
story.
going to look like on the other side.
Continue telling the stories.
Yeah, you got to tell the stories.
Victoria,
So, go ahead.
I'm super curious. Why? Why this? Why writing? Was that forced on you, or were you born to write? Why?
It was, oh my God, it was the opposite of forced. I came out of the womb, I always say, wanting to tell stories. Growing up, I was a theater kid, but I would fill notebooks, like pages and pages with stories that I never showed anyone. And I think because doing theater, there was a little more structure there growing up, and it was a little more organized. So it was like, oh, she likes attention, we'll have her audition for the school play. Whereas writing was a little different. I didn't take my first screenwriting class. I grew up loving movies, loving film. I took my first screenwriting class in college. I went to the University of North Carolina, go Heels.
Oh,
And
family's from North Carolina.
Oh, no way, love it.
Yeah.
The similarities keep popping up. And then I started writing screenplays. And again, also really not showing them to anyone. And then I started working for Ivan Reitman, the late great Ivan Reitman, in 2017. I worked for him for 5 years until literally, and then a little past until the day he died in 2022. But during that process, I always say I grew up working for Ivan. That's where I really came into my own as a professional, working for him in the Montecito Picture Company and the Ghostbusters franchise. I had a courtside seat at watching one of the greats work and watching how stories got shaped and came to life with also not just with Ivan, but with the team of executives and all the amazing people we collaborated with. And I also read a lot of really bad spec scripts. So
that's always a great education.
It is, because again, I'd like to say, what I wish I could say the reason I started really pursuing writing is because I self-actualized and did all this work on myself. But it was really like I'd read the nth bad scripts. I'm like, I think I can do this. Am I the next great American screenwriter? Probably not, but I think I can maybe do something a little better than this. If this is getting sent to me from WME. And so while I was on Ivan's desk, I wrote a script about the making of Singing in the Rain during the Red Scare, which is only becoming more and more relevant, which is terrifying. And but Singing in the Rain, but Hollywood and dance, but gotta dance. And that script, I sent that to a manager contact who this man then became my manager for 4 years. I said, "Would you read this? Think about repping me?" And he goes, "Yeah, I want to go out with it this weekend." And I was like, "What?" And then all of a sudden I was a writer. The script blew up at CAA. An Avenger sank it over there. I won't say who, but it was an Avenger. And then
An Avenger sank it?
Yeah.
An Avenger sank it. And
Yeah.
Victoria Mail is trying to move forward.
Yes. And then I kept writing and had more and more scripts go out. And then fortunate enough in 2023 to be an Academy Nickel finalist. And then as of last year, in the best market possible, I made the big scary jump into writing full time. After Ivan passed, I had a couple other gigs. And then after the strike, it just became unbearable. And I was like, and also the nickel was such a huge validation that I was like, okay, I got to do this. I got to do this full time.
What is
I'll be poor and happy.
What is it you're fond of quoting, Chris? It's a Stephen King remark about the story that won't go away. Yeah.
King says there's people who write down every idea they have. And he says that's a great way of memorializing bad ideas. Just keep them in your head and let them fight it out. And the one that keeps bothering you after all the others that have fallen away, that's the one you absolutely need to write. So, yeah. What I want to do is, for those who don't know, can you give a relatively brief explanation about what the Nichols Foundation is and being a Nichols finalist? And then I'm going to, if it's okay with everybody, take you back to Ivan Reitman and ask a few questions about that time of your life.
Sure.
Nichols.
Yes, the Nichols Fellowship is the way I always pitch it to people or explain it to people, because it doesn't really need pitching. It's very prestigious because I'm talking to a fellow Nichols finalist. The Nichols Fellowship is, I always say, it's the Oscars screenwriting competition. So it is the preeminent screenwriting competition for emerging screenwriters put on by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. So like the people who do the Oscars. My year, there were about 5,600 submissions. So even if you make the quarterfinals of about, I think that's like the top 350, that's a huge accomplishment.
Oh, yeah.
And then if you make the semis of the top 150, that's an even greater accomplishment. And then my year made the top 13, which is nutso.
Wow.
And then 5 people win and get a fellowship, and they get a nice big check and mentorship and the shiny Nickel Fellow badge. But it's an honor to be nominated. But yes, that's what the Nickel Fellowship is. I always said when I was working in development, we only really paid attention to 2 things, by the way: blacklist, and if you were
Nickel Fellowship.
Yeah, if you were
finalist.
If you had a nickel placement.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I entered that in the 90s, and I was completely ignorant. I didn't understand the prestige of it.
Oh,
so
really?
When I showed someone the letter that I had gotten as far as I had gotten, they freaked out, and then they had to sit me down and explain to me why I should be freaking out. So yeah,
explain this to you, Lucy.
That's why I asked. Yeah, let's get it explained, because some people it might fly by, but
yeah. Thank you.
So that kudos to you, because that is a huge accomplishment. People say, if you didn't win, how's it huge accomplishment? Because it is a measuring stick. All these things that you try out for and you take the shot, it's always worth doing. And Nichols, God, that's fantastic for you. And that'll stay with you for a while. I noticed it under your name, and I was like, oh my God, we have to talk about that. But Ivan Reitman.
Yeah.
And you had given us just a little hint by saying I grew up during my 5 years with Ivan Reitman.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how did you get that job? And then what was it like initially? And then
how did you grow?
You grew into it, and what we'll talk about some experiences, and that'll set us up to the big payoff about what's happening right now.
Yes. The job, I got it so randomly. I wish I could say it was I wish I could.
Random works.
I wish I could. I wish I could give something like replicable for the audience. But I was a broke girl in my early 20s, and I needed a gig, and I linked up with a couple staffing agencies for assistant work because I had a little bit of assistant experience. And then this one staffing company, it was the first interview they sent me on. They go, Ivan Reitman needs an assistant. He needs someone with personal assistant experience, which I'd had. That's honestly all I'd had. And I lied and said I said I knew how to roll calls. And they're like, you should go in and interview. And I went in and I had the first interview with the team that went really well. And then I went and sat down with Ivan. And Ivan, and for y'all who don't know who Ivan is, he directed all, if you're my age, he directed all your dad's favorite movies in the 80s. He directed the original Ghostbusters. Yes, the original Ghostbuster films, Twins. He produced Old School. He produced Animal House. He's like this comedic behemoth.
Oh, yeah.
But he was a very reserved guy. So I just remember going into that interview and walking out and being like, didn't get that one. And just went back to my other gig. And then later that week, they're like, okay, Ivan wants you to come in and interview with his business partner, Tom Pollock, who was the head of Universal in the 90s. Yeah, he's a big deal. He it cracked me up because I know Tom, and like when I think of Tom, I think of Starbucks peppermint lattes and croissants, but like everyone else knows him as the guy who greenlit Schindler's List and did George Lucas's Star Wars deal in the 70s and pioneered modern entertainment. But it was so funny because I like hustled back down to the Sony lot in Culver City, and then I saw Tom leave, and I was like, that's weird. And then Ivan came in and offered me the job, and I was so shocked. He looked at me, he's like, are you excited? And I was like, yes. I was in complete and utter shock that I got the gig. And I think I started terrified, just absolutely like, because also he'd been through a couple people before me. Okay, so like the pressure was on. I needed this job. I needed to do well. This was such a huge opportunity. I remember I was like 24, waking up with angina because I just wanted to do. So I just wanted to. As you can tell, I was also like a very high-strung, overachieving student. So I wanted to nail this, and I think
let me just add for the people watching. You said you don't know what they can take away, right?
Yes.
But there's two. One.
Okay.
Try, because you just said I needed a gig, and opportunity happened. Just try. Then second. The freak out is part of the process, right? The angina, that's part of the process. And I really want to do it's so many people think of it as stage fright and stuff, but it's really a measure of your caring. So people out there should remember means it matters to you, right?
Yeah.
So
you
now
gotta
you're
do
in
the
the
thing that
office.
scares you.
Yeah.
What was it like being in the office? What was the initial day-to-day? And
oh my God, it was insane because we worked in the Ghostbusters firehouse. So it was nuts.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. That's a sentence I never thought I would ever hear.
I didn't think I'd ever say it, to be honest.
That's the tagline, Alex.
Yes.
Come here, Victoria Mail. We worked in the Ghostbusters.
Literally at Culver, the exterior of our building was the Ghostbusters firehouse, and the two Ecto-1s were across the walkway. And then so was the car, because I grew up on Will Ferrell's comedy, so was the Ricky Bobby car. And Good Nights. And it was insane because you're surrounded by all the posters of his movies and then all the Ghostbusters merch. But then again, at the end of the day, it was like at first, a very straightforward but high pressure office job. Like the studio was too real. I don't know. I'm sure we're all watching the studio, but I just had to, also because I came in on the edge of growth. So again, my boyfriend and I, because my boyfriend at the time also had gotten a big assistant gig, had just also gotten a big assistant gig. So we taught each other how to roll calls. And it was such a baptism by fire. And then the funny thing was a lot of it was just a normal assistant job where you're setting meetings, but then Ivan would ratchet it up because you're not just setting meetings with an executive, you're setting a meeting for Ivan to go pitch to the head of Universal. And then the head of Universal's assistant I forget the gentleman's name. The exec just got pulled into a meeting with Steven, so he can't do the pitch. I'm like, Steven. I'm like, oh, Spielberg. Fine, I'll allow it. And then Ivan, I don't know, but I'll allow it.
Yeah.
And so it started as a very cut and dry assistant gig where I was scheduling phone calls. In the 5 years, I never got Ivan's coffee order. The workaround was just like I learned how to make the coffee, and then I would have to give him the side of his creamer and his Splenda so he could get the ratio just right. And that was a huge part of the job. And just
The little details matter.
yes,
Yeah.
the very basic things. And then the great thing about that company, however, was they wanted everyone to be a part of the development team. And I was thrown head first into weekend read, which is what are we going to read this weekend? And on Friday or Thursday, and then on Monday, what did we read? What was good? What should we pursue? What should we fight for? I was thrown into that right away, which was great, which kind of made all the in China worth it, because in addition to working for someone so prestigious, I also got to be involved creatively.
I want to wrap the
Yes.
first part with a follow-up, and then I
Yes.
want to talk about the reading. So
Yes.
the follow-up question is, all right, there has to be a moment somewhere
Yes.
where it was the crucible moment and you passed and you realized, I can do this job. Do you remember what that moment was? It's all a blur.
It's literally like I
When
crushed
he
a lot of it.
accepted that he would finish the coffee himself.
Oh my God. I think my big thing, it came was the first thing, I'm just gonna say the first thing that comes to mind is when
Okay.
I started taking over negotiating the private jet charters.
Oh,
Wow,
okay.
okay. All
Okay.
right. Yeah,
When I taught myself how to do that, I was like, bring it.
that's beautiful. That's
And then I
beautiful.
think I think that actually was important because he saw the that I could
Initiative.
take initiative, and I just
Right.
did anything. I was resourceful, and I just did whatever it took within
And you
legal,
did it well. So
parameters to get the job
Right.
Yeah,
done.
the plane took
Cool.
off, so that was a good thing. Yes.
There were
Not-
times where I was like, "Will it?" I
These
can't.
days, it's more of a roll of a dice with the
Yeah.
weather.
Private jet is now a trigger phrase for me, but yeah. So I think that was a big moment for me, or that was when I started proving that
Yeah.
I can do this. I can rise to the challenge, whatever you throw me. And yes,
So that takes care of kind of the office day to day. But we're really interested. I'm interested in segueing back to
Yeah.
what you said before about, okay, the weekend reads.
yes,
Now, were you conversant in what that particular part of the job would entail when you were first assigned?
yes.
Okay, can you give us just a little
Snippet?
You're going to expect to do this. What is it?
Yes, I was really lucky that I interned for Toby Maguire and his company Material Pictures when I first moved out here. So I knew, and they were actually a company that made me fall in love with development. So I knew what Week and Read was, which is you get a production company gets submitted anywhere from 5 to 30 scripts a week.
Sure.
And then Week and Read, we had 2 installments of it. There was like the end of the week talk of or discussion of what are we reading this week? What do we want to prioritize for us to read over the weekend? And then on Monday, it was the meeting of the minds. I read this too. This is great. I don't think so. Or I read this too. We need to go after this by all means necessary. Or we just got the latest draft in of this project. What do we think is working? What do we think? What are the notes for the next round for the writer? So that's like the bare bones of it.
Okay, so viewers understand, oh, she read scripts. Let's take it a little deeper. Were you given marching orders for what to look for? Are we looking for a Bill Murray or a vehicle? Are we looking for this, or were you just looking for quality? And if it's the latter, what were the definitions for, say, Ivan Reitman's office of quality?
So we were lucky in that we did not have a very specific mandate. It didn't have to be something that Ivan would direct. There were scripts where we're like, do we think this would be good for him? Let's run it by him. We just wanted, pardon my French, we just wanted to do cool shit. And again, because we were in this very privileged position where we had a deal at Sony. Ivan was such a big name. We were like, not a lot of companies get this. So let's go off. Let's do it. And I think for me, the stories I was it was just, did I really viscerally respond to the material?
Okay.
There was one, this was one of my big like development stories. I remember it was October. It's my first year working, and the president of the company, Amy Carp, or she wasn't the president, she was the VP then. She went on to be the president, said, I just got this. Also, sorry, also quickly, it's important to establish your taste too. Because I was the YA fantasy
Yeah.
girl. That was
They
my
don't want to
cup of
give you
tea.
a splatter horror movie. That's not your
No,
thing.
we read everything, but
Right.
it was, for the more elevated stuff, did that. There was Danielle. I'm like, does Danielle like this? And then other, for the more like broader stuff, we're like,
This is
does
a
this pass
Victoria
the sniff
script,
test with
right?
Henry? Yeah, but
Mhm.
for me, I was more like the like girly, YA girly, and like the fantasy girly. So I remember there was a script about like a female YA retelling of Peter Pan, which is like one of my favorite stories of all time.
Sure.
And I remember Amy Carp was like, I'm in meetings all day. It's a hot spec. Amy Pascal and Margot Robbie want it. I need to know if this is worth fighting for. And I read 30 pages and I came out because Ivan wasn't in the office a lot because he lived up in Montecito. So I would go into Ivan's office. And I came out of Ivan's office and I go, I'm ready to fight Margot personally for this. And I want this so badly. And we got it. And we
Oh,
got the script.
fantastic.
And that was like the first time as a development exec in training that I got to be like, this. And then my other kind of like special sauce of that company was I just took a ton of initiative. They let me bring in, also another part of Weekend Read was, hey, I watched this weekend and this person was amazing. Or I went to this short film festival. The fact that we need to meet with this director, they're going to be something big. So that was also where I really carved out a role because I was Little Miss Hustle and Network. And I'm like, really, it was funny because back in the day, I feel like my colleagues would give me side eye for who I was meeting with, but now
Mm.
they're all huge. Because
Mm.
I didn't want to meet with the people who were hot now, great, but I wanted to meet with the people who are going to be hot in 5 minutes
Mm.
or 2 years, because then you have the relationship and you're ahead of the curve and they'll take your phone call because you believed in them. It's also because I started working in the industry in casting. That was a really good lesson. You don't meet with the lead of the project. You meet with the person to the left of the lead because they're the next big thing. And so that was really fun too, of just getting to meet with, and that's how I think I I was able to do this reading, is because I learned how to cast and build relationships with people through working with Ivan. And I got to meet with amazing folks who went on to be huge. I met with Divine Joy Randolph 3 years before she won the Oscar. I met with Danny Ramirez, who was just Captain America's buddy in Brave New World.
Kennedy the Falcon.
I know. And I remember, because I'm such a Marvel nerd too, I was like, and he's like, yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. Very good. Who else did I meet with? I got to meet with Benito Skinner, whose show Overcompensating is blowing up on Amazon right now. So it was really exciting to be a part of this and then also expand my personal Rolodex for life after Montecito.
That's great. All right, so we're going to have a couple of recap advice bits from Victoria Mail for those of you who are in there saying, you know what, God, that sounds like a dream job. That's something, right? There's always.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. When it was great, it was
Yeah.
amazing. When it was bad,
Well, if you're going to quote somebody, why not?
Yeah, why not Dickens?
So maybe we should
ask
for a worst case, and then we'll ask for, okay, 3 bits of advice for people interested in trying to get into that part of Hollywood. So give us a worst case.
And then we're going to come back to how what you did brought about this you're about to do.
Oh, that's definitely the segue, Alex.
Yeah.
That's right.
Next.
So everybody keep watching.
That's why I mentioned it.
I love it. I think the worst case, the hardest day. There's one where I don't think I got passports in when I was supposed to. And so Ivan and his family are in Teterboro being like, what the FDF is going on with the passports? And I just wanted to crawl under my desk, but it got worked out. Another worst one was I leveraged a personal relationship to get an offer to someone I knew for a Netflix movie we were doing. And when we called his agent, they're like, he's not available. And I was like, okay, I was texting him last night and they're like, that's why you don't go out to talent directly. And I was like, I didn't. I had an executive tell me to do that. Because I said, my idea was like, all right, let me call his reps. And then my boss was like, you should just go out to him directly because I had his number. And I remember I was on set for Ghostbusters Afterlife and we were shooting at an abandoned gas plant in Calgary. No, not even in Calgary, in like somewhere in Alberta. And I just remember looking at the Canadian crew going, I'm just going to walk into the woods. And they go, all right, it's July. We'll see how long you last once winter comes. But then again, I have a couple drinks at the hotel bar? Yes, that night. And then I think also there's like this thing of resilience where you have to pick yourself up and move on.
So
And
that's
yeah,
that's one bit of advice. No matter what happens, pick yourself up and move on.
Yep.
my
Don't
other
curl into
thing,
the balls, right?
yes, is
Two
I
other
think
bits of advice, please.
my other thing is take initiative. It's just I took ownership over that role and I was doing so much more even within the first 6 months of working for Ivan. And I was fortunate that there was an environment, they set an environment where this was possible, but I took so much ownership over that role that I made it what I wanted to be and got so much out of it more than just being on Ivan's desk. Like another really fun thing that I got to do, because I was the nerd, I was hosting a podcast about fandom from the female perspective at the time. So I was already going to all the big comic conventions anyway. And then I started scouting IP at the original IP for us to develop at the conventions. And that's how I met former guest and friend of Tell the Damn Story, Brandon Easton, by the way. Show is killing it on Cartoon Network, and I'm so goddamn proud of him. So it's like, again, look at the white space and see where you can bring like your own special sauce and magic to it. And that was amazing for me because I was, again, a broke assistant and I would get to expense my trips to Comic Cons. And I was like, this is life. And then my other piece of advice is be nice to everyone. And there's two reasons for that. One, it's the right thing to do. You should be nice to everyone.
Yeah.
Two, you never know who's going to be successful, who's going to be the person you're going to need 5 years down the line. So that's the Machiavellian.
Yeah.
But I think because I've really tried to treat everyone with kindness and respect and generosity. That's why for this upcoming project, for whatever happened to Baby J, I have not just the cast doing this for free or donating their time and I'm paying for their cars, but I have a murderer's row of volunteers and people helping me out, not because they like the script or want to work for free. It's because of my relationship with them. So I think that's my other big piece of advice.
I want to just jump in here on two things here.
Please, Alex.
And then definitely, now we're coming.
We've dropped the title.
Yeah.
So now segues
here we
are
go.
us.
One is you said that you took initiative and all, and that's great. And your energy and your devotion and your kindness and all that is wonderful.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing that you didn't mention is you read the room. You've got to be attentive of the world in which you are moving at that time so that you can play your cards. And I'm not talking about being inauthentic. You are your authentic self, but
Yes.
you're also aware of where you were, how these things were moving, and you made your steps or took your steps accordingly. And I think that's really key. And I just wanted to point that out, that you definitely didn't just blow in there and take over. And that's because that could be disastrous for some folks.
Oh yeah, I would have been immediate. I would have been kicked to the curb immediately.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was a thing too. Also, I just finished this amazing book, Blue Fishing by Steve Sims.
Okay.
And the biggest thing, and it was such a helpful listen because I listened to it, especially with this event for Baby J, is because I'm asking a lot of people and a lot of companies to do stuff discounted or for free. Is how can you make it a win-win for everyone? And I think, Alex, that's what helped me set it apart. It wasn't just, I want to do this. If I do this, it will benefit Ivan or Montecito this way. So do you think we can make this work? And that's where, again, going to school with mob bosses' children also helped.
Yes, but yet your word choice is not mob boss word choice. Your choice that, how do you think we can make this work? It gives them an opportunity to join
Buy
in,
in,
to
Yes.
to buy in.
Yeah.
That's really important
Yeah.
skill to have, is how you say what you
So
say.
you've got some remarkable people to buy into a magnanimous event.
Alex Simmons segues.
Da, 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 da. So tell us what it's about and why.
Sure.
Whatever happened to Baby J is
Yeah.
your
Whatever happened to
script.
Baby? Yes, and I'm talking to film buffs, so we know what titles to play on. Okay, so also, can I just say to my fellow writers, just again, also follow the thing that excites you. This
Mm.
time last year, I wasn't sleeping. Not much has changed. I I did not sleep last night, so that's why when you ask me a question, my eyes go blank for a second. That's why. Two, I got really obsessed as a millennial. I was like really into NSYNC as a child and like the Backstreet Boys. And a year ago, I just fell back into the rabbit hole. I don't know if it's because of the rise of fascism in the West. I wanted something comforting, or
Sure.
I think also, I actually am very anti-nostalgia. We got to focus on the here and now.
Okay.
But with those boy bands, it was one of the very few things I'd encountered in which they were better than I remembered them. And I had a better appreciation for what they did too, because I grew up, I was like 6 till 10 when they were big, even though I'm Gen Alpha and only 21 or 20 years old. But I loved them as kids, and I thought they were handsome, and the music was great. But then as now an adult who has studied music and performance and all this stuff, I was like, oh my God, these guys were like athletes. And I could appreciate the 5-part harmony so much more. And then also as a grown woman, I'm like, God, they were fine. I knew Baby Tori knew what she was talking about, being like the rest of the girls my age. And so I just got so inspired, and I just wanted to follow the fun for once of writing a wacky story. Also, because my favorite movie of all time is Spider-Man, like the OG Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
You mentioned Toby
I know
earlier.
it's very highbrow, but I love the idea of a pseudo love triangle between the superhero, his alter ego, and the love interest. I wanted to write basically a pseudo superhero love triangle in the world of boy bands, and the way that came out in my brain was, and I challenge AI to do this because it's you don't have my mental illness, but
That's what's going to save us from AI.
It was about this woman named, the script's about this woman named Olivia who loved this band growing up called Five of Hearts. And as most of us do, the story goes, the boy band breaks up, and the lead singer of the boy band, Baby J, instead of like some people going solo and becoming an even bigger megastar, he just dropped off the face of the earth. And Olivia, there's a line in the script. She's like, you guys broke up and emo took over and I went to college and we all moved on. And part of her moving on was marrying this nice guy who was a nerd and he doesn't talk about his childhood, named Robbie. And then Robbie goes missing, and it turns out that Robbie was Baby J. And so she teams up, and he never told her because he never wanted her to know about his past life. So she teams up with the rest of Five of Hearts to go find him. And that's whatever happened to Baby J. Yes, she teams up with his bandmates. Basically, Lois Lane teams up with the rest of the Justice League to go rescue Superman.
But in this case, the Justice League can sing harmony.
Yeah, the Justice League,
harmony.
5-part harmony, and really good at choreography.
There you go.
That's their superpower.
That's the key factor here. Are they fun?
Yeah. Yes. Oh no. And the fact I got so many heartthrobs to do this, I'm peeing myself.
Now, before we get to the heartthrobs, let's talk process. All right, you got the concept.
Yes.
Everyone does things a little differently. Some people write out histories and backstories. Some people write down casts. Some people just jump in and meet the cast as they come up in the script. Style, your process.
I love an outline, and I'm a big apostle or follower of the Save the Cat 15-beat beat sheet, and doing that is a really good exercise for me in knowing if this idea has legs. I'm like, is this a script or is this just NSYNC fan fiction?
I think how you capsulize things.
It's so funny too, because some of our cast members knows them, and I'm like, I have to keep it very chill with Dale Capolato being like, so yeah, your friend. He was on the Mickey Mouse Club with like Justin and JC from NSYNC, and I have to keep it. I'm like, I have to keep a lid on it. So that was how, for this project, I think also because I've written a lot of screenplays at this point now. I had, the way I knew I was ready to even outline and like stress test the idea is I had two images in my mind. One was a baby J being having a bedazzled bandana that's actually a torture device put on his head and being forced to rehearse.
Okay.
Because Justin Timberlake used to wear these bedazzled bandanas, the NSYNC concerts, and I was like, what if the rhinestones were electric notes? So they would shock these people, will shock him and force him into like Dance Monkey Dance. And then I think the other thing I had was this joke of Olivia watching an old performance of Baby J and being like, oh, I recognize those hip moves from other activities.
Hey now.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
And she's like, wait, that's how we accidentally conceived our daughter. And
this is not a middle grade story here. We're talking.
And the event is 18 plus. But so I did a 15. I took the Save the Cat beat sheet. I'm like, what's my opening image? What's my break into two? What's my midpoint? Like getting out all these ideas or just getting the structural framework up there. And like, okay, I think we have enough to start cooking. And then I also am very blessed that I have an amazing writers group that I'm a part of. So I ran it by them and got some feedback. And then I don't always do this, but I just jumped into writing. I think because I knew the cast, obviously I was basing the boy band on the boy bands I loved growing up. And then I just also had this idea of, I think with the characters in the cast of kind of pulling from these tropes of, I loved growing up, I loved Spider-Man and like Smallville. So pulling the characters from that and then putting my own spin on it. I wrote the first draft of this in 6 weeks.
Wow. Great.
And it was weird because I usually, and I'm talking to writers here, usually I have to have a gun to my head to like really sit down and write something. But this was anomalous in that all I wanted to do was work on this.
In there.
Yeah.
And when that happens, you have to serve the story.
You
have to. Yeah.
Occasionally you might even take a shower, but
other than that,
no, it was just me at the Beverly Hills Library. I bet those poor folks last year, what is up with this girl who's there every day watching NSYNC music videos on YouTube? Like, it's, excuse me, it's research.
It's research. That's research.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's research. Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm an artist and this is my process.
That's right. So I want to just give people a little perspective. You said I had written a lot of scripts before this. Can you give us a ballpark figure? We won't hunt you down for it, but a ballpark.
Let me pull up my website.
At least. Let's go to the videotape.
No, literally, they all kind of start blurring together.
No, I totally get that. I have to read my resume every now and then.
I know. It's what have I done? No, I know I've written at least 3 features, and by written, like idea, draft, rewrites, polish, go from there. And I'd written a couple, 2, 3 or 4 pilots. And then I'd co-written a couple things with an old writing partner. So I think the grand total of both features and pilots were double digits.
Yep. Well, understand, some of the audiences, they're on their first or second project. Some have a couple of dozen that they've done.
Yeah.
I have to keep going. Everything's okay. Keep writing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Showstopper, which is one of my first screenplays, that was 6 months. And I think because it's like going to the gym, you're getting your reps, like, because I've been keeping this muscle warm and active and been building it. 6 months for Showstopper, it became 6 weeks for Baby J. And it was a very rough first draft.
I believe so strongly in the rough draft. Get it out, let it suck.
Yep.
Rewrite is the king or queen.
Yeah. Yep. And let us talk about, quote unquote, an extreme case. Was it Killing Field? Why am I going blank just as I started to say the whole thing?
Of course. That's how it goes.
Help me out here.
The Killing Field?
Yes, it just came out like last year. Flowers of the
Flowers
Killers of the Flower Moon. Killers of the Flower Moon.
I always invert that title. Yes, 10 years.
Yeah.
On that script. 10 years. And we're not talking about a new writer who's just starting
No.
out 10 years ago.
No.
You know, that Scorsese, not Scorsese, yes, Scorsese is someone who had many experiences under his belt, had successes under his belt, but the script wasn't right 10 years ago.
Yeah.
He got advice on it 10 years ago, and he worked on it for 10 years before he
was ready to go.
Yeah. You commit to, or as Chris likes to say, serve the story.
Yeah. So let's segue back to whatever happened to Baby J.
Which is much like Colors of the Flower Moon. No,
it's almost the same movie. Native Americans, boy bands. Do we have to
murder? Yeah.
How many drafts do you think you went through?
Again, I'm going to say 3-ish. But again, and I say this, like this, there was 3-ish drafts to get it ready to take out to the town. And this is the version that is going to be the stage reading. I have no illusions that should a production company say, we want to develop with this with you, that's going to be, I can't even put a number on how many more drafts that will likely be.
But it's really important for people to understand that this process continues.
It's a process,
Yeah. And then again, that was like, there was, and I'm lumping in like half steps into that number of 3, but there was like, I started writing it. You know, what's so funny is the event is on June 9th.
Yeah, and we really need to get to that too. So
it's coming.
Yes,
it's coming. It's the next question.
Yes, great. And I got the idea on June 9th to write this because I remember I did an Instagram thing. So
Which
a year to the day.
A year to
2024. Actually,
that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work in 1 year. Cool. And now we've mentioned June 9th, and we've mentioned whatever happened to Baby J. What is going to happen
to Baby
on
J
June 9th with your script? Whatever happened to Baby J?
I'm so excited. We're doing a live table read, stage reading fundraiser for the AIDS Resource Foundation for Children, which is a cause my family has worked with for 35 years. So I can happily vouch for them and all the amazing work they're doing. HIV/AIDS prevention and protection is one of the more concerning things that's coming back in fashion from the late 80s and 90s, because there's been a lot of federal funding cuts to
more coming.
Yep. So we've made, especially in the West, we've made such progress treating HIV and AIDS, and it's no longer a death sentence like it was not too long ago. However, there's a chance we undo decades of progress.
Yeah, you're in very good company, Victoria. Just this morning, I was watching Bono say almost exactly the same thing, because that was a big.
We're tight. We were texting.
Well. Yeah, you two are tight. You know,
him, me, and Elton.
But go ahead.
So on the 9th.
Yes, on the 9th, I have assembled a cast of nostalgic icons to read the script. So Jodie Sweetin from Full House is going to read Olivia. Drew Seeley, who was part of the High School Musical franchise, as well as the Gen Zers know him from Another Cinderella Story, but he's reading Baby J. We have more nostalgic icons like Doug Jones from Hocus Pocus and all your favorite movies of the past 20 years.
I tell you what, I'm excited by the cast.
I know, Doug's amazing.
I pulled Doug out.
I know, because he's a legend. I was emailing him last night.
Okay, drop a couple of names on Doug, because some people may not know him. Like, I didn't recognize him.
He was in Hellboy. He was Abe Sapien. He was a Silver Surfer. He was this character in Star Trek's Discovery.
Through.
One of the most amazing, heartwarming characters that I've ever experienced, and I've watched a lot of Star Trek and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Doug Jones.
He is
the king of special effects, but in your piece, we get to see Doug Jones.
Yes, we get to, he also is, he's Hollywood's go-to guy if you need an amazing actor who can work with prosthetics or VFX. Yes. He is Guillermo del Toro's go-to guy for all of his character work. So Doug was in a couple of the creatures in Pan's Labyrinth, as well as he was the Fishman in Shape of Water.
Yeah.
Doug loves roles where he can show his face, so that's how I got him to do this. And I worked with him 10 years ago.
Like Kevin Conroy for Batman. We knew his voice for so many years. And finally, space. Yeah.
And then we also have a lot of other fun folks. I'm just going to name a couple more. We have Nate Richard from Screenwriter Teenage Witch. We have Elisa Donovan from Clueless. So it's really a murderer's row of people you loved in the 90s and early aughts who are reading the script. We also have original music, which is something beyond my wildest dreams because I can't do that. My brain doesn't work like that. So my good friend Jennifer Smith, who was a music supervisor on Behind the Music, is our executive music producer. She brought on the fantastic Grammy-nominated Jan Perchik to produce the music. Like what?
Wow.
And then to bring the songs, a couple of the original songs that my dear friend Ryan Stillman wrote for the script to life. And it's so funny. Ryan sent me, we just look at each other and laugh because Ryan sent me these like little voice notes last summer as I was writing this script, just for me to have a little more specificity in the script for us to reference stuff about the boy band's like big hits. Like what's their I Want It, what's Five of Hearts, Bye Bye Bye, what's Five of Hearts, I Want It That Way. Oh, we have a Grammy nominated dude making it. And Drew and Dale are singing on it and we're just looking at each, and Jen's like making it all happen and Ryan and I are like, what's this? So yeah. And then also we have an amazing event raffle. So if you buy your in-person ticket, you get 2 entries into our event raffle. And if I could shamelessly self-promote for a moment, since I know writers are listening, our event raffle, just alone, I made sure to get a lot of goodies for my fellow writers. Let me just go through what you could win, what your $60 ticket gets you 2 entries for. A signed script from The Office co-creator Stephen Merchant, a free sensitivity read from Joe Mwamba, who is the owner of Telamazing Courses, a pilot script consult from the VP of television at Will Gluck's company, Madison Jones. I will do a feature consult for you. You get 2 free 1-year subscriptions to Writer Duet, which is like Final Draft meets Google Docs. I use it all the time. I'm jealous.
With my students.
Yes. I'm like, wait, can I win that? 2 3-month Creative Lunch Club memberships for networking, a year-long membership to the Scriptwriters Network, and a subscription to the Conscious Writers Collective, which is you get to jump the wait list basically because the creator of that, Maya, is going to onboard the winner herself.
Now,
that's worth $1,400, and that's just one of our raffle packages.
Wow. And that's for people buying tickets to attend this.
And in person in LA. Thank you for saying that, Chris, because we also have live stream tickets. And even if you buy a live stream ticket, you're going to get a 20% off discount code to Writer Duet. And Libro FM, which is this awesome audiobook subscription service, is also giving a discount code for everyone who gets a ticket. So live stream or in person.
So while we're talking about that, where do they go to get tickets, whether they want to live stream or whether they want to attend? How do we do that?
The easiest is bit.ly, bit.ly/babyj, and it's just the letter J tickets. And that'll take you to, we're doing the reading at Dynasty Typewriter in LA. So you can either go to their website, but also bit.ly/babyj tickets will take you to our ticketing page where you can purchase your in-person ticket or your live stream ticket and support an amazing timely cost.
So you're going to send me that link so that I can put it in the show notes. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I want it to be a party. I don't want it just to be a live read. I want it to be the most fun you've ever had.
Why a Monday night?
Because part of it was just Dynasty is to be perfectly frank, Dynasty is a very in-demand venue, and that's what was available to me. It funnily worked out that it was a year to the day of me getting the idea for the script. And I wanted to extend the weekend and have a little fun for people. And we all know no one in LA works or goes to a normal office
job. It's also
job,
a great way to start the week. So
yes, you're gonna start it on a bang, and it's gonna be a party, but we'll get you out
for a really good cause that needs that kind of support. So
yeah.
It's a win all the way around.
We're gonna come back to this for a second, but it was something I read in your material, and you had alluded to this when you started talking about the event. You said your family had been involved in fundraising for this particular organization for 35 years. Could you just a little bit about your dad?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So the AIDS Resource Foundation, I have to go actually one generation back. The AIDS Resource Foundation was the last charity my grandfather donated to before his death in 1989, which I didn't realize how insane and radical that was until I grew up and learned about the AIDS epidemic. Because in 89, people weren't touching people with other people with AIDS. And then my father, for 25 years, did a charity golf outing in Westchester, New York, to benefit the AIDS Resource Foundation. I can't believe, and I'm so proud that my family, over the course of that quarter of a century, raised over $800,000 for the cause.
That's amazing.
So this is my golf outing. I'm taking up the mantle because my father also sadly passed away in 2017. This is, as I'm telling my family, I'm like, this is my golf outing. It's just a little less golf and a little more like music and jazz hands. But yeah, the AIDS Resource Foundation, I'm really proud our family has a very long relationship with. So again, I can vouch for the amazing work they do.
I just wanted to shine a light on that because, A, joyous, wonderful, energized individual that you are, talented, all that, and the pursuit of our personal goals to acquire some position in a career or an industry that
Right.
we love, all fantastic. But to also take some of that energy and give back is
It's the
really,
only way I
yeah.
felt comfortable doing this. If this was just like, hi, I wrote a script about boy bands, this would never have had the courage to swing as swing as hard as I did, or take as many swings as I have with this. I actually, it like makes my skin crawl, like the whole idea of shameless self-promotion like this. So I knew this had to be for charity and for a cause that was so near and dear to my heart. There was no other way to do this in my mind.
Victoria, you give so many lessons. This episode is
Do I? I feel like I've just been like screaming about NSYNC and Ghostbusters for the past hour.
No,
and
this
loving
one right
it.
here, you said two things. One, you posed the problem. Self-promotion is really tough to do. It's weird to talk about, to push ourselves, to promote ourselves, but you found a way that your heart and your head could work together. Right? But if I do it for this charity, then I can feel good enough about it to take those big swings. And that's a huge lesson. Alex and I have to self-promote all the time, and finding a way to make it work so that you don't self-sabotage. No one wants to hear about me. You have to work around that. So as again, you're giving us gold. You're giving us gold, Victoria.
God.
So let's talk about the event and after. So the event is going to be best party you ever had, according to Victoria. And somewhere in that joyous event is going to be the reading of your play by a stellar cast, right?
With music.
Including Doug Jones, I'm sorry, with music, with 90s stars that help with the place and time and setting and themes and just the environment of the piece. It will raise money. So the money goes to the AIDS charity. That's fantastic. The cast hopefully will get a 7 to 9 minute standing ovation. Flowers for you. Excellent, successful night. What else would you hope happens from this evening? Where do you go from here?
Honestly, because I have friends who are like, okay, so when we pitch this for the movie version, I'm like, I can't even think about that. Hopefully, I think my biggest goal is the immediate aftermath is to cut a sizzle because I get the line cut of the live read.
Sure.
I want to cut a sizzle of this and send it I'm in the process of looking for new representation. So send it to some awesome managers and agents, and then as well slip it to some awesome production companies and producers to see if they want to bite on this, because we did take this out a little bit at the beginning of at the end of last year. And I don't need to tell y'all, right now in the industry, the buzzword is risk aversion. And so another element of this is creating an audience and a proof of concept for this original story to mitigate that risk. Being like, hey, look, we got all these stars to say yes and do this for free. We had this attendance. We raised this amount of money. Look how funny it is, or here are the best moments.
Proof of concept.
Yeah. let's take it and make it a film, maybe.
By the way,
There's another Avenger big superhero doing a boy band film, so my expectations are managed, but I don't know. I have a couple ideas of someone who could go up against Deadpool.
Well, I will say quickly that Sizzle, by the way, folks, is like a trailer or something like that.
Highlight reel.
Highlight reel. There you go. There's another phrase for it. And as I often tell my students, the thing that makes your piece different from the 15 other people in the room, if I gave them the same plot, is you. The work filters through us, what we believe, what we stand for, our philosophies about life, all those things. So yeah, there may be another Avenger out there, but we also know in game, not all of them made it. And the other thing is that how you tell the story is going to be different from how others do. And so we just sit in the stands here. Chris and I will be sitting in the stands in the raccoon coats, waving the pennant flags, cheering you on. That's
Thank you.
That's what we'll do.
But let's not avoid the fact, yeah, there's competition, and there's competition in any creative thing you do. And is that Avenger possibly positioned better? Sure. I could name 100 people who are positioned better than the project I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
That doesn't negate it. That doesn't mean you stop it, because what they're doing may not be what so-and-so is looking for.
Very true. And I also think that's a big reason I'm doing this reading, though, is because I've been the David to Goliath, to other Goliaths on projects. And the reason I want to do this stage reading is I love this script so much. So I think also there's something to be said for, if this is the only life it has, I will be happy, but I wanted to give it some sort of life. Because as writers, we know that so often you put your heart and soul in something and it sits in a drawer. And I just could not accept that with this script.
Right.
Yeah, I've got something out there.
Go ahead, Alex.
I've got something out there that's been doing the dance for a couple of years, and it has come so close with some really tight, wonderful people involved. And there's always that one, it's like lock picking.
Yeah.
Let's just get that one we can give up and go away and say, I guess it never, but no. As long as I can keep swinging, I'm going to keep swinging. And
giving up and going away ensures that it stays in the drawer.
Yeah. Very true.
Right? Moving forward, creating events, creating life for the project, which is what you're doing here. And
creating
doing it
and
for
affecting life.
Good reasons, not just because it's me. You're raising money for HIV treatment. You're showing people how great this can be. That's a great synergy there. And that makes it worth doing. You got to, that you have to be alive.
Yeah, you got to be.
No one's knocking on your door.
To quote the great Wayne Gretzky, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah. You got to hit it.
I have to clock watch because that's part of my game.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, because
sadly.
I won't.
Yeah. Yes.
We'll be here all day.
Yeah, Friday. Oh, gee, you want to break for lunch?
Wait, 2 more questions, but it's Friday.
Yeah. So is there anything that you want to share with the audience, either to bring closure to this or to light another fire under their tuchus? Anything that you want to say in this final moments of the episode?
I think all I want to say is make your own opportunities, and please support me doing the same. Again, bit.ly/babyjtickets.
We'll be right here.
We have both live stream and in-person tickets. I've worked very hard to make sure you will because I know what the economy looks like right now. I've worked very hard to make sure you get a beautiful, big, shiny bang for your buck. And every penny of profit from this event will go to a wonderful cause. The AIDS Resource Foundation opened the first home for babies who were orphaned by HIV back in the 80s. So these people have been doing the work since 85, and they're doing the work. Like they're not doing the glamorous work.
No, they're doing the real thing.
I forgot to ask, what time is this event on the 9th?
Great question. If you're joining
time.
us in person, doors open at 6:30 at Dynasty Typewriter. The event starts at 7:30. So there's plenty of time to come, get your picture taken, buy some raffle tickets, get a drink.
And since we're
Coastal.
Gold Coast, and there's a few people across the pond who watch, you're talking about Pacific time.
Pacific time in person. The cool thing about the live stream ticket is it allows for 7-day replay. So if you buy a live stream ticket, you can watch it. You have a week to watch it at your convenience.
Great.
Because I have some friends who are tuning in from the East Coast and across the pond. And so they don't have to stay up till 3:30 in the morning or start the live stream. Yeah, I'm not here to tell you how you live your life. But yes, the nice thing about the live stream ticket is it does allow some flexibility with viewing.
Come on, people, buy the ticket, watch the show, enjoy yourselves.
Buy the ticket, period. Come on.
Let's go.
Yeah, all right, come on. We don't usually push like that. Really,
You're so kind.
How do you lose on this?
You've put a great package together. You are a fantastic person to speak to.
We will ask you back.
Yeah,
I would be thrilled.
Yeah, like an update. We'll see where it goes and that kind of thing. I also am hoping you will hold on after we finish this episode, because I definitely have a question or two I want to follow up on that we cannot do.
Oh, fun. Spill some tea?
Yeah.
I'll leave the room.
There's going to be a big puddle on the floor.
Okay, all right. Then again, Victoria, thank you so much for coming on board. I wish you 1,000% success.
Every bit
no,
of success.
10,000. Let's just go for it. 10,000 success on this, because it's so worth it, and you are so worth it.
There you go. It's a lot of fun. Yep.
Chris, as always.
Peace, everybody. Thank you very much.
What do you want to tell people to do, Chris?
Listen, you got 3 things to do, ladies and gentlemen. You got 3 things to do.
3.
You got to smash that like. You got to hit subscribe. And you got to buy the ticket, man.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Peace.